I've reviewed a program similar to this before. It is for minifying, compressing your JavaScript and CSS files on your website. That helps with page loading speed. Your site should be a lot snappier and quicker loading. Of course, you're also going to want to optimize and kind of minify your image files, such as your JPEGs and your PNGs as well. But you definitely want to do your JavaScripts and CSSs. Now, you have quite a simple interface here. You just drag the files you want to minify onto that window. As you can see at the time of making this video, it is the latest version 1.0.4. It's from the Mac App Store. It is also available from their website as well. Let's start with the General tab. Basically, do you want to show warnings when files are going to be overwritten or not? Do you want to display a pop-up when processing finishes or not? Do you want to combine your CSS files into a single file? I don't do that because I think if it compresses that, you have to alter your site. And I use RapidWeaver, so you don't really do coding. So I think it would just mess up my RapidWeaver site if I did that. But if you've hand-coded your site, you may want to use this feature. You can also tell it not to process files which already has a .min file extension because it means it's already been done anyway. You can also compress your CSSs down into a gzipped file, which is a .gz file. And I'll go back into that in a minute, actually. Let's just leave it for a sec. You can combine your JavaScripts into a single file, same as what I was talking about a minute ago with CSS. Do you want to process .min files or not? Do you want to compress your JSs into gzip files or not? Then for HTML, at this time, in this current version, it does not minify HTML files like some other similar programs do. The program I reviewed previously by another company, it's similar to this, does minify HTML and HTM files now. All this does is it will take any file with .html, and I don't think it does it yet with .htm. That's a little small bug, nothing major. They can easily alter that. But with the current version, any file that you drop on here with .html will be compressed into a separate file with a .gz extension that is basically compressed, kind of like a zip file you might download on the internet. And basically, web browsers are configured so they look at a server and ask for the compressed version. If there's a compressed version, they use that instead of the regular .html because it's compressed and it's actually smaller and quicker to load. And that is apparently a quicker and more compressed than just minifying your files. The downside to that is the downside though is the fact that, as far as I understand, I have looked this up because I haven't really ever gzipped any of my website files before, but from what I can tell looking it up on Google, your server, the people you're hosting with, their server has to be configured, such as Apache or IIS. Their server has to be configured and told in its configuration files to use and process gzipped files. So it's no good uploading just your index file in a gzip format if your hosting service and server does not actually support it. So whereas if you minify your CSS, you minify your JavaScript, you minify your .html and .htm files, no matter what server you're using, it should work pretty much flawlessly. It does with my website. I have all my files on my website that are .css, .js, .html and .htm, all minified using another program. And yes, minifying HTML files can be a bit glitchier, but with the other program I've used, I've compressed all three types of format, CSS, JS, HTML, and HTML files with both the HTML extension and the .htm extension, and I have had no problems with my website. So that is a feature suggestion. I'd like to see an update supporting minification of HTML files. The only slight bug I've found, which isn't really a bug but it needs a little tweak, is I think it only when you want to compress as a gzip your HTML files, I think it only does files which have the arrow on the end. Now when I do my website, what I do is I have the very main first page called index.html with the L, but then every other web page after that is .htm without the L. A lot of people do that, and that's sort of my style as well. And so if you do want to gzip all of your HTML files, you're going to have either have every single HTML file on your site called HTML with the L, or you're only going to be able to gzip the index file and none of the others. So it'd be good if the gzip support did support HTML and .htm extensions. Now that is all for preferences and about box. Very straightforward really, I think, especially if you know anything about web design. Now, how does it work? Well, we can open a free program made by someone else that's on the Mac App Store called EasyFind, and this is what I do. I then take the window out of the way here. I tell it where the folder is, where is my exported files that's ready to upload, and I go CSS. It finds them, I select one, then I hit Command A to select all of those CSS files, and I drag them over and wait. There, all your files have been compressed and minified, or if you have turned combining on, it should be combined. And like it says, to utilize the compressed files .gz, you must add a few simple lines of code to your .ht access file. So your host, either you or your host needs to have access to the .ht access file. And so if you don't have access to that file, you're going to have to contact your host and ask them to add these lines of code that you need, if they'll do it, or you're going to have to do it yourself. And unfortunately, some free hosts, like my website, I'm just using a free host called S-Drive by Coffee Cup Software, and they don't allow access to the .ht access, so I can't do this. So either it's already configured, or I'm just not going to be able to use .gz files on my website. See, that's the downside, whereas you don't have that downside if you Minify. Okay, so I've done my CSS. Let's do JS. You do exactly the same thing. Find them, select them all, drag, done. Then what I do, this program doesn't minify your HTML files, so all you can do is gzip your index file. But what you would do in another program, and when they add support hopefully in the future for minifying HTML files, you select them like you do the others and drag them across, and it says it's done. And that's all there is to it. So what suggestions do I have for this program? Well, the priority at the moment, I think, is it's going to need support to minify HTML and HTML files. Until it has that, I won't be using this on a regular basis. I'll be using another program that I've reviewed previously. I'm not going to name it because it's not about that program. But I will be using the other program so I can just drag all of my CSS, JS files and .htm and .html files onto the one window, hit Minify, and the whole lot's done. It's very straightforward. Unfortunately, you can only do like half the job with this at the current time. However, fingers crossed they may add it in a future version. What feature suggestion do I have that this doesn't have, and perhaps the other programs I use don't have? Well, this program, neither the program I reviewed before, and in fact, I actually can't find any of these minifying programs that does this. I would like a minifying program that allowed you to drag on CSS, JS, HTML, all those files like you can in this program and the other program, and minify them, but then also drag on your image files to optimize your image files, such as your PNGs and your JPEGs. Because what I currently do when I make edits to my website is that I drag on all the actual main files, these sort of files are listed here. Then once I've minified all those files, I close this program, or the other program I was talking about. Then I open a free open source program called Image Optum, and this is free and open source, and it optimizes. Basically it minifies like you're doing with the rest of your file, your image files. So then I open that program called Easy Find. I search for the extension PNG. I select one, then do Command A to select all the PNGs, and I drag it onto this window here. Then I do the same for my JPEGs. And then I just hit again a couple times, make sure it has absolutely finished doing it on every single file, because it can be a bit weird about that. And then now, before I upload my site, everything is done. All of my HTMLs, my JavaScripts, my CSS, my PNGs, my JPEGs, every single thing that I possibly can from on my website is optimized and minified, fast, and it should load really fast and smoothly. And it isn't a big deal doing it in two separate programs, but what would be ideal if one of these programs, such as Minify or the one that I won't name, it would be good if they supported doing minification of all those files that they do, plus had basically the support of basic support of image optum inside it as well. So you could drag on all your regular files that you always have been able to, but also drag on while you're at it at the same time your image files, and then basically you'd be able to optimize every single file in your website pretty much from the one interface. That would be so handy, but unfortunately I haven't found any of these programs that do it. The program I reviewed previously doesn't do image files, and neither does Minify. So that is a big feature suggestion for perhaps not the next version like 1.1 or 1.2, but perhaps a 2.0. But the support of minifying .htm and .html files I would like to see before a 2.0, such as in a 1.1. But then I do understand that a major thing like adding image support would be perhaps a thing that you'd have to pay for again in a 2.0. But yeah, that's my thoughts. Basically, it's a good minifying program that is on the Mac App Store, which, by the way, the other program I mentioned that I reviewed previously is not currently on the Mac App Store. You have to go to their website and get it. This program is available from the Mac App Store. It's a good little minifying program for your website, available in the Mac App Store. However, at this time, it's not quite there for me yet because I want to be able to minify my HTML files. But apart from that, it's a good program, and let's actually take a look at it on the Mac App Store. So I'll show you the price, and also I should just sort of mention again that if you have HTML files which are .html and they're all .html and they're not .htm, if they are L and your server has been configured for gzipping, you can gzip all of your HTML files, which will actually make it load even faster in Minify. So I just want to make sure I point that out, that it does at least do that though. Now let's go and put in Minify, and then we'll finish up. Okay, here it is. It's under Developer Tools, although like I say, like you just saw, you can search for it. Current version is 1.0.4. It costs in pounds £10.99, and I think it's about $15 in the US. In pounds is $10.99. And I will put a link to their website in the description, along with a link in the description straight to the Mac App Store page. So please like this video, and if you could do me a huge favour and subscribe to my channel, as it only takes a few seconds and will help me out a lot. Thanks.